Om Sai Ram. Sri Sai Sacharita, Chapter 20. Das Ganu's problem solved by Kaka's maid servant. In this chapter, Hemant Pant describes how Das Ganu's problem was solved by Kaka Sahib Dikshit's maid servant. Preliminary. God was originally formless. He assumed a form for the sake of his bhaktas. With the help of Maya, he played the part of an actor in the big drama of the universe. Let us remember and visualize Sri Sai. Let us go to Shirdi and see carefully the program after the noon Aarti. After the Aarti ceremony was over, Sai used to come out of the masjid and standing on its edge, distribute udi to the devotees with very kind, gracious and loving looks. The bhaktas also got up with equal fervor, clasped his feet and had the bliss of udi. Baba passed handful of udi into the palms of the devotees and marked their forehead with udi with his own hands. The love he bore for them in his heart was boundless. Then he addressed the bhaktas, "O Bahu, go home to take your lunch. You Anna, go to your lodgings. You Bahu, enjoy your meal." In this way, he accosted each and every devotee and sent them home. Even now, you can have the pleasure of these sights if you bring into play your imagination. Now, bringing Sai in our mental vision, let us meditate on him and from his feet upwards to his face, prostrating before him humbly, lovingly, and reverentially. Isha Upanishad. Das Ganu once started to write a Marathi commentary on the Isha Upanishad. Let us first give a brief idea of this Upanishad before proceeding further. It is called Mantropanishad as it is embodied in the mantras of the Vedic Sanhita. It constitutes the last or the 40th chapter of the Vajasaneyi Sanhita Yajurveda and is therefore called Vajasaneyi Sanopanishad. Being embodied in the Vedic Sanhitas, this is regarded as superior to all other Upanishads, which are in the Brahmayagyas and Aranyakas, explanatories on the mantras and the rituals. Not only this, other Upanishads are considered to be commentaries on the truths mentioned briefly in the Isha Upanishad. For instance, the biggest of the Upanishads, the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, is considered by Pandit Satwalekar to be running commentary on the Isha Upanishad. Professor R.D. Ranade says the Isha Upanishad is quite a small Upanishad and yet it contains many hints which show an extraordinary piercing insight. Within the short compass of 18 verses, it gives a valuable mystical description of the Atma, a description of the ideal sage who stands unruffled in the midst of temptation and sorrows, and an adumberation of the doctrine of Karma Yoga as later formulated. The most valuable idea that lies at the root of the Isha Upanishad is that of a logical synthesis between two opposites of knowledge and works, which are both required according to the Upanishad to be annulled in the higher synthesis. In another place, it says poetry of the Isha Upanishad is a commixture of moral, mystical, and metaphysical knowledge. From the brief description given above about the Upanishad, one can see how difficult it is to translate this Upanishad in a vernacular medium and bring out its exact meaning. Das Ganu translated it in Marathi OV meter, verse by verse, but as he did not comprehend the gist or the essence of the Upanishad, he was not satisfied with his performance. On being dissatisfied, he consulted some learned men regarding his doubts and difficulties and discussed it with him at great length. They did not solve them, nor did they give him a rational and satisfactory explanation. So Das Ganu was a little restless over this matter. Sadguru only competent and qualified to explain. As we have seen, this Upanishad is the quintessence of the Vedas. It is the science of self-realization. It is the Sit or the weapon which can rend asunder the bondage of life and death and make us free. Therefore, he thought that he, who has himself attained self realization, can only give him the true and correct interpretation of the Upanishad. When nobody could satisfy Daskanu, he resolved to consult Sai Baba about this. When he got an opportunity to go to Shirdi, he saw Sai Baba prostrated himself before him and mentioned his difficulties about the Isha Upanishad and requested him to give the correct solution. Sai Baba blessed him and said, "You need not be anxious. There is no difficulty about the matter. The maid servant of Kaka Sahib Dikshit, will solve your doubts at Villaparle on your way to home." The people who were present there and heard this thought what Baba was joking and said, "How can an illiterate maid servant solve the difficulties of this mystic nature?" But Das Ganu thought otherwise. He was sure that whatever Baba spoke must come true, as Baba's words was a decree of the Brahman, the Almighty. Kaka's maid servant. Fully believing Baba's words, he left Shirdi and came to Villaparle, a suburb in Mumbai, and stayed with Kaka Sahib Dikshit. There, the next day, when Das Ganu was enjoying his morning nap, some say when he was engaged in a worship, he heard a poor girl singing a beautiful song in clear, melodious tone. The theme of this song was a crimson-colored sari. How nice it was, how fine it was, its embroidery, how beautiful were its borders. He liked the song so much that he came out and saw that it was being sung by a young girl, the sister of Namya, who was a servant of Kaka Sahib Dikshit. The girl was cleaning vessels and had only a torn rag on her. On seeing her impoverished condition and her happy temperament, Das Ganu felt pity for her, and when Mr. Rao Bahadur, Mr. M.B. Pradhan, gave him a pair of dhotas the next day, he requested him to give a sari to the poor girl also. Rao Bahadur bought a good chirdi, a small sari, and presented it to her. Like a starved person getting delicious dishes to eat, her joy knew no bounds. Next day she wore the new sari and out of great joy and merriment, rilled and danced around and played fugdi with all other girls. The day following she kept the new sari in her box at home and came with the old and torn rags, but she hooked merry as she was in the previous day. On seeing Das Ganu's pity transformed into admiration, he thought that the girl, being poor, had to wear a torn rag, but now she had a new sari, which she kept in reserve, and putting it on the old rag, started herself and showing no trace of sorrow or dejection. Thus he realized that all our feelings of pain and pleasure depend upon the attitude of our mind. On thinking deeply over this incident, he realized that a man ought to enjoy whatever God has bestowed on him in the form of conviction that he besets everything from behind, before, and on all sides, and that whatever is bestowed on him by God must be for his good. In this particular case, the impoverished condition of the girl, her torn rag, the new sari, the donor, the doni, the deed were all part of the Lord and provided by him. Here Das Ganu got a practical demonstration of the lessons of the Isha Upanishad. The lesson of contentment with one's own Lord, with the belief that whatever happens is ordained by God and is ultimately good for us. Unique method of teaching. From the above incident, the readers will see that Baba's method was unique and varied. Though Baba never left Shirdi, he sent some to Machendragarh, some to Kolhapur, some to Sholapur for practicing sadhanas. To some, he appeared in his usual form. To some, he appeared in the waking or dream states, day or night, and satisfied their desires. It is impossible to describe all the methods that Baba used in imparting instructions to his bhaktas. In this particular case, he sent Das Ganu to Villaparla, where he got his problem solved through the maid servant. To those who say that it was not necessary to send away Das Ganu and that Baba could have personally taught him, we say that Baba followed the right and best course. Or how else could Das Ganu learn a great lesson? Now we close this chapter with another beautiful extract from the Upanishad. The Ethics of the Isha. One of the main features of the Isha Upanishad is the ethical advice it offers, and it is interesting to note that the ethics of the Upanishad are definitely based upon the metaphysical position given in it. The very opening words of the Upanishad tells us that God pervades everything. As a corollary, from the metaphysical position, the ethical advice it offers is that a man ought to enjoy whatever God bestows on him in the firm belief that he pervades everything and whatever is bestowed on him by God must be good. It follows naturally that the Upanishad should forbid us from coveting another man's property. In fact, we are fittingly taught here a lesson of contentment with our own lot in the belief that whatever happens is divinely ordained and hence it is good for us. Another moral advice is that a man must spend his lifetime always in doing some action, specifically the karmas enjoined in the Shastras, with resignation to his will. Inactivity, according to Upanishad, would be the canker to the soul. It is only when a man spends his lifetime in doing actions in this manner that he can hope to attain the ideal Naishkarmya. Finally, the text goes on to say that a man who sees all beings in self and sees the self existing in all beings, in fact, for whom all beings and everything that exists have become self, how can such a man suffer from infatuation? What ground would such a man have for grief? Loathfulness, infatuation, and grief verily proceed from our not being able to see the Atman in all things. But a man who realizes the oneness of all things, for whom everything has become the self, must ipso facto cease to be affected by the common foibles of humility. Bo to Shri Sai, peace be to all. Om Sai Ram.